Om Sai Ram. Let us understand chapter number 50, Removal of Ignorance. But before that, let us do the Namasmaran, followed by chapter number 50, and we will conclude chapter 50 with the Aarti. श्री सच्चिदानंद सतगुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय। ओम श्री साईनाथाय नमः। 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 Om Sai Ram. Chapter number 50, Removal of Ignorance. I bow to Shri Ganesh, I bow to Shri Saraswati, I bow down to the Guru, I bow down to the family deity, I bow down to Shri Sita Ramachandra, I bow down to Shri Satguru Sainath. There is no limit to my obligation to my parents who gave me birth as a human being, and that I was not born as a worm. I was not a torment to my mother in the womb. I was not born blind, lame, squint eyed, stuttering, dumb, or deaf. I was born hale and hearty, completely well formed. I was descended with God's grace in a high Brahmin caste family, whom even the gods respect, and was very fortunate. As we are born million times, there is a mother and a father for each birth. But there is a great rarity of such percentage which allows me in avoiding the cycle of birth and death. The one who gives life is really a parent. The other performs the thread ceremony. The third nurtures and fosters. The fourth is he who protects from fear, troubles, and tribulations. In this world, they are only equal level, but there is no true father other than the merciful Sadguru. Let listen to him in wonder for real achievement. The one who impregnates the womb of a mother by one who is born is the giver of life. He is the father in the popular sense of the term, but Sadguru is the remarkable father. He does not spend his seed and yet gives birth to his son without any use of bodily organ. He grants full grace. I bow to him who frees one from the cycle of birth and death, the cloud of mercy, the light of knowledge, who gives deep and true knowledge of the Vedas, the best of all gurus, who pervades all. I bow to the Son, who is the remover of darkness of this world, one who has knowledge of self and who is most distinguished amongst the saints, who is the moon for the mind of devotees, who are like the chakors, like the wish fulfilling tree, the best of all gurus. Unfathomable is the greatness of the Guru Raya, describing the words inadequate and speech fails to describe. It would be better to remain silent and keep one head bowed down at the Guru's feet, unless one has practiced great austerities throughout the earlier lives. One does not have darshan of a saint to remove threefold calamities. One who desires to have spiritual gains, liberations, and his own welfare should surrender to the saint. Then he will lack nothing. Twice blessed is the company of the virtuous. How can the greatness be desired? The virtuous devotees attain discrimination, detachment, and supreme bliss near them. Sai is supreme consciousness only. From the formless state, he took form. Who can definitely describe his desireless state? He lovingly tells his own interesting story for the devoted and loving devotees who are the listeners. Be compassionate towards them. The stories are his temple. The sense of ego is crushed by the touch of his hand on one's head and gives way to the reverberations of the feeling I am that, inundating the entire world with joy. What power could be insignificant? One like me to have described the stories of Sai. He himself has brought to light this book, born out of the love of devotees by his grace. I roll in the dust of Sai's feet, greet the assembly of listeners, bow to the sadhus, saints, and virtuous people, and lovingly embrace all. Sai tells the stories as an easy sport, which are laden with the code of moral rectitude, perpetual peace with his ornament. Even the great saints meditated upon him. It is not correct to compare him to the sun because the sun sets, nor to the moon because it waxes the veins. This Sai is always perfect. Hemad humbles himself at the feet and lovingly appeals to the listeners to listen to this narration with complete faith, attention, and interest. The earth is well plowed and the seeds are sown. But if you, the cloud of mercy, do not rain, can there be harvest? When the stories of saints are heard, their remains are the no sinfulness, merits sprout on listening to the stories. Take advantage of this rare and favorable opportunity. The four types of mukti hold no attraction for us. Enjoin unwavering devotion to Sai. This is our supreme achievement. Since we are not all at all bound, what association could we have with Mukti? Let devotion to the saints awaken within us, which alone will purify our inner selves. When the sense of you and I does not arise, which should really be the natural state, we need that devotion without duality. We ask Sai for this boon. Now there is only one request to the listeners. When they take this book in their hands to read, the subject matter, the reading thereof, and the reader should all become one. Ignore Hemad Pant as he is not the author of the Satcharita. He is only the instrument for the welfare of his devotees. If by good fortune you are not you have got an oyster and you throw it away, you have lost the pearl. Why concern yourself about how the ashwata tree flourishes? Do not lose hope of your welfare. Here there is no one but Sai who speaks the words and writes them also. He himself is the subject to be listened to, the one you listen, and also the listener. This union or oneness should not be lost. Where the ears are not ready to listen with respect, and where the mind is not concentrated, then there is no listening or reading at all. Then how should one know the meaning? While listening, do it with humility. The listeners should only deem that sigh is in their mind. Only then the correct listening is accomplished. Let the oneness be continuous. Then, just as the waves of the water mingle with the waters, so all the inclinations or activities of the senses would be one with sigh. Only in this way the knowledgeable learn about spirituality, and those who are interested in humor will be delighted with the wit, and those who will appreciate poetry will be able to enjoy the poetic stanzas. Everyone will enjoy this book, be it so. Earlier in the Satcharita, in the 39th chapter, the advice that Samartha gave to one of his foremost devotees have been mentioned. When the devotee was near Baba, he was reciting the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita from the beginning at that time. On one hand, he was pressing Baba's feet, and on the other, he was reciting the prayer. When the 33rd verse was over, he started with the 34th. With a calm mind and with full absorption, he was uttering the words very softly, but others did not know the source. When he started on with the 34th verse, Sainath felt like gracing his foremost devotee and putting him on the righteous path. The devotee's name was Nana Chandolkar. Then Baba said to him, Nana, what are you murmuring? Why don't you speak it loud? For some time I have been watching that you are muttering something, but your voice is not distinct. What is the secret? Then Nana spoke clearly. I am reciting the Gita so that it may not disturb others. I am mumbling the words. Let that be for others, but for me, speak clearly. Do you understand what you are reciting? Let me know clearly, said Shri. Then saying the word verse out aloud, beginning with Tat Vidhi Pariprashnena. Nana showed what he was saying with prostration. Baba was satisfied on hearing it. Then, when he asked the meaning of the verse, Nana said the detailed meaning as given by his earlier Acharya. Baba shook his head. Asked again, he asked Nana. Nana considered the third metric foot, Upadeshyakti Take jnanam and try to concentrate on it. In that, after the word te, there is a sign of suspension for the letter a. If read as agyan, consider if the meaning becomes opposite. Shankarnath Dhyaneshwar, Anandagiri, Sridhar, Madhusudan, and other commenters made its meaning based on the word Gyan, and this is accepted by everyone. I also know that. But why should we knowingly be deprived of the marvel that can be enjoyed by inserting a suspension sign? After speaking thus, Sai, the cloud of mercy, showered drops of nectar of advice to the devotees who are like the chakor and chatak birds. I have already narrated this in chapter number 39, but all the readers of this Sai Leela magazine in which Satcharithra chapters are being published were not amazed by this meaning. However, some had doubts. This is amazing, so that may be a little satisfied and the matter may be properly proved. I will make a little more effort to convince them of the rightful use of the word agyan. Some would even doubt whether Baba knew Sanskrit. There is nothing unknown to saints. The reason for doubts seem to be something else. Who does not know the saying from the Shruti that one who has understood the one has knowledge of everything? Sai had knowledge of the self. What do the saints not know? One who can see the whole universe and clearly as an amalak fruit held in their palm. Even the sun is illuminated by them. One who has that knowledge of the one. How can they have lack of any knowledge? Whatever is contained in any vidya is known to them. What is so important about Sanskrit? There are some readers of the Sai Leela who say Nana is dishonest. This is arisen and contrived by his own imagination, and he has written about his unwanted suspension, indicating his ignorance. He himself has created this fictitious story about the suspension and the ignorance in relation to it. He has unnecessarily raised this fruitless wrangling to show off his great knowledge. Where there is no suspension, he has introduced it. In the place of the word gyan, he has derived the word agyan. In this way, he put forth a contrary meaning of the Gita. But Looking at the facts is and thinking deeply over it. There is no inconsistency in the 39th chapter of the Sai Leela. Whatever be your opinion on whether Nana is honest or dishonest, do not believe what he has narrated to be nonsensical utterance. Leaving aside your aversion of Nana, the readers should not be swayed by emotion. When you set aside the apparent or superficial, he will be found innocent. Sai Leela is one of the best magazines. Without reading the 39th chapter, it would not be easily possible to understand the present chapter. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the fourth chapter called Dhyana Yagna, there is a discourse by Shri Krishna on ignorance, and the 34th verse is about ignorance. Tat vidhi pra- pranipatnena परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेशन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञान ज्ञानानि तत्त्वदर्शिनः. This is one of the important verses of the Gita. In the third metric foot, there is a suspension before the word Gyan, thereby Agyan appears. If the suspension is not considered, the word Gyan can be undoubtedly read. There is no objection against that. That is generally the meaning that is elucidated. Liberation is achieved through knowledge. These words from the Shruti are accepted by all, but it is not binding on the philosophers to teach Gyan. I am the Atman, a pure witness, untainted, knowing, free, and liberated, pervading the whole manifestation, supreme consciousness, unblemished, filled with bliss of unity and consciousness. But I am neither ignorance nor am I product of ignorance. Understand me to be this soul as Brahman and know me to be the treasure in the highest consciousness and also know me as bliss. I am Brahman is the saying that always inspires me. Know this to be only pure knowledge. I am a sinner, unfortunate and godless. These feelings spring from the mind of ignorance. This Maya is an ancient or eternal power. Because of ignorance, one is in the state of being bound. Because of knowledge, one is free from bondage. This is the state of being from a thousand times immemorial. This total misconception of name and form is the complete illusion caused by Maya. Words are inadequate to describe Maya, and it is very difficult to conquer. The abode of Maya is in the fanciful thoughts that arise. The state of being bound or free certainly arises from imagination. Liberation is achieved through knowledge. This principle from the Shrutis is eternally true. But until the karmas arising from sins are annihilated, it is impossible for the knowledge to dawn. One who is impressed with pure knowledge know that has to be abandoned by all desires. He is not bound by Maya. There is no place for passions or emotions for him. A supremely knowledgeable person like Shuka came to the sad end also because of doubts. Ignorance is born due to doubts which cannot be removed without a guru. When a doubt in mind appears of a knowledgeable person, even such a person becomes egoistic. Even a huge pot of milk gets spoiled by a drop of sour gruel, and all the milk is spoiled. Therefore, it is important to understand ignorance at the outset. Once it is removed, the mind gets purified. After that happens knowledge manifests infinitely, and the mind will attain undisturbed absorption in contemplation. He who is concentrated on the riches and fame is yet craving for sense of enjoyment in spite of having had it, and is incessantly thinking of wife and children. His knowledge is nothing but ignorance. Thus One who is obsessed with wealth, sons, and wife does not know his well being, even though he may be knowledgeable. Therefore, so long as he is without devotion, his knowledge is veiled by ignorance. All living beings are full of ignorance. Being free from ignorance, become knowledgeable and then transcend that also. That stage is Brahman Roop, an embodiment of Brahman, certainly. When the ignorance disappears, knowledge manifests. He who is knowledgeable is forsaking, forgiving by nature. Take pride, for the body is not lost. He is under the control of Maya. Avatars like Ram and Krishna, saints like Sankat, Sanak, and others, the most knowledgeable ones, have Maya as their handmaiden, but is fooled by others. Though the self resides in hearts of all creatures, no one knows this. Such is the inconceivable state of Maya. It has unfathomable power of illustration to veil it unless the false pride of feeling I am the doer, I alone am the enjoyer is left out, and one does not surrender to the dweller in the heart, one cannot attain self liberation, discriminate between the transitory and eternal, and listen, chant, meditate, and contemplate on them, and enrich yourself with the six virtues such as Kshama, Dama, etc. Only will drive away ignorance. The world is different from me. I am small and limited. The feeling that I am the body, this is unalloyed of ignorance. In the science of Vedanta, which propounds knowledge, there are four necessary antecedents. The writer, in all compassion, has explained them in detail. The befitting person, the subject matter, the relation between the two are the three, and the fourth one is the purpose. After carefully explaining the purpose, there arises what is called as removal of ignorance. Complete unity of the individual soul and Brahman happens verily. The main subject of the Vedant and the removal of ignorance involved in understanding the principle of unity. This happens to be the purpose. Therefore, removing the ignorance from the root, it itself is attainment of self bliss. Hence, using all contrivances, it is necessary to destroy ignorance. Until one has the feeling of duality, he cannot be called as knowledgeable. The knowledge of a person who has bodily pride can be called complete ignorance. He makes a show of his own knowledge but performs improper acts. He is as good as dead. He is like sleeping Kumbhakaran. For him who does not behave in accordance with the Vedas and does not follow the rules are the only means to purify his intellect is removal of ignorance. Even Brahma and others have been deluded by the three gunas such as sattva, etc., by the words of speech, touch, form, taste, and smell, and on account of organs and the tongue with different permutations and combinations. All the movable beings in the world are encircled by ignorance and Maya from times immemorial. They are engulfed by passions such as anger and hatred and surrounded by ignorance. Every being is bound by ignorance. For its pure form to manifest is necessary to break the ties with ignorance, desires, and the fruits of past actions. The cow's teats are so full of milk that it oozes out. The tick or the cattle's love sticks are fast there itself, but it enjoys the blood to how it would have taste of the milk. Notice the frog and the humble bee. The beautiful lotus houses them both, but fragrant pollen is around which the bee hovers, while the frog feeds on the mire. Though a repository of knowledge is before a person, a foolish one is attracted towards ignorance. What is the use to him is instruction to knowledge. When ignorance is removed totally, the knowledge of Brahman will manifest itself. Therefore, it is necessary to explain what is ignorance at the outset. Know that there is nothing purer than knowledge of Brahman in all the three words. The teaching of knowledge has a lot of reverence. Without it, life will be in vain. If this Brahman was were an effect on par with objects cognized by intelligence, there would have been least some sense of enjoyment. The principle of Brahman, it has intelligence in its purpose, but that which goes beyond the sense of enjoyment is perceivable by intellect, and it is one that the Smritis declare, but the Shrutis do not agree with it. When intelligence does not exist, then the very instrument of cognition becomes extinct. Then only the existential character of Brahman remains as the basis of the resort. Whatever is experienced by the senses, all exists and nothing else. This is well known to all. Brahman then does not at all exist. This will be the meaning of all in all said so far. But if it is true, it will be calamitous, making intelligence also existent through and through, helping one understand the chain of objects that are subtle, subtler, and the like. Let intelligence also dissolve, but there too stays the form of combination of existence, because undoubtedly the soul is the root cause of the world, and all dissolution ultimately rooted in existence. If a stone is thrown on a pot, its form is broken, leaving behind pieces. Though the shape of the pot is destroyed, the pieces indicate that it existed, although the effect is in the form of what is destroyed. The existence of the pot knows no destruction, as the pot shards remain for continuity. So, indeed, is the essence of existence in them. At no time, the dissolution of the effect is one which ends in void. The dissolution is rooted through essential character. This is valid as seen in the cognition of Sat and having the idea of Sat, which is existence. All the holy places and woes are holy or pure, but holier or purer is knowledge of the Lord. Then, without knowledge of the Lord, singing bhajans and worship is meaningless. The mind is tainted by ignorance. The mind cannot be cleansed without devotion to God, but without devotion to God, knowledge is not born. Therefore, know what is ignorance at the outset. After being described, you will derive the lesson therefrom, and only then will the bondage be broken. Devotion is the only means to do that. If the collyrium is applied to the eyes of a child, then the feet then uh, foremost it can find wealth which is underground. Similarly, when devotion is practiced, ignorance is destroyed and knowledge dawns. Knowledge itself is the means of self attainment of self realization, for which the main reason is to destroy ignorance. Unless devotion of God is achieved, the power of Maya is boundless. Knowledge and ignorance mix together. Throw away ignorance and pick up pure knowledge, like discarding stones and impurities from grains of rice. Before the rice cooked, it's in warm water. The Lord exists in all living beings, doing a yagna for knowledge and other worship. If one sees Sri Krishna as all pervasive, ignorance burns away, leaving behind knowledge. Now let us see the nature of the yagna for knowledge. The pillar, which is the sacrifice, is tied in, which is I am Brahman, axiom, the five elements of the universe are the courtyard for yagna, and the animal that is sacrificed is the belief that there is difference between a living being and God. The five senses and the five pranas are the only requirement for this yagna. In the hollow space of mind and intellect, the kindle fire of knowledge. The being is the one who performs the yajna, offering oblations of ignorance in the place of clarified butter. He is completely engrossed in bliss of the self, and that is being bathed in the water of purification at the end of the sacrifice. In conclusion, without oblations of ignorance, in the place of clarified butter, the fire of knowledge can never be kindled. By burning the difference between the living being and God, manifest knowledge and unity of consciousness. Just like a clean mirror is covered by dust and the light of fire by smoke, similarly, knowledge is controlled by anger and desires is covered by ignorance. Just as Rahu hides the moon or the moss covers water, Maya puts a veil over the self luminous knowledge. The intellect of great knowledge is corrupted and they fall into disgrace. They know how to remedy the situation but do not follow it. They act as per their wish. Though they are able to see, they act like blind, leaving aside their good attachment. They behave in a shameless manner. They become a source of worry on account of evil association, almost by force, and continue to act at their free will. Those who have retired from worldly life return to householders and with determination indulge in forbidden acts. They accept loathsome objects as most pleasant. Those mistakes and sins which have been avoided by effort, they fall into due to the ignorance of fate. What could be said about such a state? Is this the wisdom of a knowledgeable person? Even if there is knowledge, then the person does not wish even the shadow of a sin. He gets deceived like a moth by the light and does not distinguish between good and bad deeds. He knows fully well that doing a sin is ignorance, but because of the inclination of desire, he does not pay heed. All these deeds are performed due to desires. Desires are the cause of all destruction and which matures in the form of anger. When there is obstruction to the fulfillment of the desire, then thwarted desire becomes anger. At every step, it hinders liberation. This course of action is an impediment to knowledge. This living being is caught up in the difficulties caused by anger and desire. At every step, it hinders liberation, and the embodiment of Brahman is very close and dwells near knowledge. They drown one without there being any water, burn one without there being any fire, kill one without being any weapons, and bind one without being any rope. Even the knowledgeable cannot withstand them and are defeated if they wager against them. They have the power to bring about destruction of the universe and swallow the living beings without their knowledge. Desire and anger envelop the frontiers of knowledge like a membrane, just like a killer snake encircles the roots of the sandalwood tree. The senses, intellect, and mind are abodes of those desires. With the help of these, the knowledge of the living being is dimmed and he is Lord. If you want to obtain the sandalwood, then you have to kill the snake, remove the evil desire, and anger in the store of knowledge. Without killing the snake, can anyone attain sandalwood? Without killing the black snake, can you obtain the buried treasure? Similarly, to achieve Parabrahma and self realization is the only means to remove Maya. Therefore, at first, control the senses, thereby anger and desires will be destroyed. These senses are subtler than the body. The mind is more subtle than them. The intellect is subtlest compared even to the mind. The supreme being is subtler than the intellect. This is the most high supreme truth which transcends all existence and righteousness. The supreme spirit is the most beneficial. That is the nectar sweet eternal self. the pure witness, untainted, eternal, free, and liberated. That indeed is the principle of non duality, that alone is the nature of supreme bliss. In opposition to a sentence that which is known as Panchikaram is verily the display in the form of Maya, the only instrument of superimposition and sentiment, and it is necessary to be conscious to this these five elements without their judicious combinations called the elements, their evolutes with the vital airs, the senses, mind, and intelligence form the subtle body of the soul. To appreciate the five elements combined in five ways gives rise to a gross part of Atman and the gross body of the soul. The knowledgeable ones call it Virat, which is gross or material body. The cause of the origin of the gross, subtle bodies is the ignorance of the real nature of the self. Know with that with its appearance, which is avyakrit, the body is the cause of the Atman. This is known as the casual body, which is associated reflection of sentiency. It becomes the cause of ignorance, which is known as the unmanifest and not evolved. The reason for all this is neither imparte or party nor both. The body to be destroyed, the only knowledge to be attained is the union with the Brahman and with the Atman. To be in the state of one's own form is known as moksha or liberation. There is no moksha or liberation other than to be in one's own proper form. If only knowledge about the union of Brahman with the Atman is achieved, then only ignorance is removed. Therefore, it is necessary to describe what ignorance is, that is, which becomes solid because of ignorance has reached the state of being tainted. The state came to be called as existent. It is thus assumed the state of being denoted or connoted by the word. Though originally it is beyond the keen of senses, it was made understandable by word. It was only then that the form entered the mind and assumed the form of Omkar. Blessed indeed is him whose body falls while meditating upon the Omkar Brahman along with the remembrance of the Lord. So be it from the spoken word Om, that is the form of Brahman which is unseen, there appears the unmanifest. From this unmanifest arises the principle of this Mahatattva, which is an evolute from the unmanifest and is from that where the ego is born. Ego originates in the subtle rudiments, further giving rise to gross elements, and verily in the world born in these five elements. Cosmic ignorance is verily the indication of the form of this world, and for the demolition of this nuisance, it is necessary to explain ignorance. That which is pure consciousness is the pristine form, totally pure and unsullied. Whatever is different from this is soiled. It is not proper to mix the two. Know that the Brahman is very different from which is expressed in words. Therefore, with the help of proper instruction, it is necessary to set aside the layers of ignorance. Mind is experiencing a dream in sleep, visualizes the three worlds by itself without eyes. Ignorance is the cause of all this. Perceive only the rays of the sun. People call it marriage, but this is the only sport of Maya, before which even the knowledgeable ones become helpless. When one brandishes the burning wood round and round, what is seen is the firebrand. Even here, it is the world of illusion. While seeing the real fire, there is no room for a firebrand. Similarly, the expanse of the allurement by illusion creates the world which really does not exist. When the illusion is removed with the help of the resolve, then only this mundane existence ceases to exist. I am the body, she is my wife, this is my home. All this is a futile exercise. Even those who are called knowledgeable and learned but are deeply involved in the attachment of sun, cattle, that is to all the earthly possessions, do not enjoy the slightest happiness. The experts in the branch of knowledge endowed with intelligence do not consider any other person as equal. There is a great conceit within the heart that causes discontent. This itself, illusion or ignorance or state of nuisance, is a primordial matter, is the chief. At the outset, the knower has to start by removing these, and only then knowledge would arise. This knowledge, however, is self luminous and is not necessary to give instructions about this. When ignorance is destroyed, the elucidation of knowledge will manifest. It is like the gem of full of luster which is pressed down in the form of dirt and dust of years together, and the memory of which is extinguished. Then at some point of time, by chance, accompanied by action and aided by dharma, it comes to hand. It appears that all pristine luster is lost because of its having been with the stones and clod of the earth. Then, on cleaning it well and removing the dirt and dust, acquires its pristine luster. Similarly, is the state of knowledge realization. Discrimination between the transient and permanent objects destroys sense. That itself grants refinement, and rectification of it becomes knowledge. This world is a marketplace of Maya, illusion, flooded with real and fake objects. There are many customers ready to take fake objects, but to believe in the real, there are very few, but many wise ones. Wisdom is patented in ascertaining the fake from the real. One must know the indications which cause this deception. Therefore, it is necessary to have a shared knowledge to distinguish between the real and the unreal. He, the Sadguru, will easily show you the difference, and ignorance will disappear. Once ignorance is removed, then knowledge remains and illusion will be easily removed. Whatever remains is the self. Know that there is no need for visible proof. Though the view of wisdom is clear, it is dimmed by darkness of imagination. This darkness flees with Upadesh. What remains is full knowledge. In reality, if there is a garland lying on the way which will seen as evitide, seems like a snake. That is the only reason for ignorance. When you light the lamp, hidden in the pocket, ignorance vanishes. The real form is seen. The semblance to the snake automatically disappears. Therefore, the remedy to do away with harm of evil ignorance is Upadesh. Therefore, the wise ones vary themselves by giving Upadesh, which constitute ignorance. Being present in the mundane world is due to prarabdha, actions of the past life, which are done in the past, born out of ignorance. At the outset, knowledge is necessary. Knowledge is truth, and Brahman is eternal. Ignorance, illusion, etc., are all the causes of erroneous conception. When this erroneous conception is removed, then only will misconception and knowledge about knowledge will be dispelled. He who has not lost the pride of self, who will call him wise? He who is the abode of wrongful pride can be called as ignorance personified, that which is flooded of illusions, in which the world is fully engrossed, but is in mundane existence, for ignorance is a basic prop. It arises out of ignorance, and its grandeur is born out of ignorance. When the plurality instead of unity, that too has its refuge in ignorance. When there is a little light and a little darkness, the rope on the road Though a rope appears to be a serpent and one is terrified, the misconception that it is a snake is merely ignorance. The ignorance has veiled the truth. Until then, ignorance is dispelled. The mind does not become free of fear. To some, it appears like a garland of flowers, while some see it like a stick. In short, it is all misconception inclined to excessive misjudging. One who follows the writings of the Vedas has a belief in God. He alone is qualified to have knowledge of the Brahman. One who is an atheist for numerous lives also can never be qualified. Those who see the world as a dwelling place for the movable and the immovable persons and the things and not as manifestations of God in various forms are confused. They never escape from the cycle of birth and death, and for them, the essence of Brahman is unattainable or extremely difficult to attain, whereas it is very easy to attain by those who are qualified. No amount of sermonizing is effective here, nor the acceptance of the different Vedas nor the intellect to understand the meaning of various scriptural books, nor being well versed to such books. By using words, one can gain bookish knowledge, but it can give knowledge. But can it give knowledge of the Brahman or truth? The intellect is capable of discrimination, but Brahman or truth is not at its command. The Shrutis have a vehement desire to describe it but have not attained Brahman or truth. They have reverted, describing the glory of Brahman or truth, and given up their desire for the pursuit of knowledge. The six orthodox schools of philosophy have spent themselves and indulged in arguments till this day, but the self remains undescribed and did not come within the purview of words. The great learned ones became like fireflies before the sun in respect of the self. Once the self is realized, the meaningless maze of words disappear. Observe that in the world of darkness of the night, all activities are carried out with the lamp of light. But when the sun arises, the people disregard the lamp. Therefore, that which is not subject to be described in words, how can it be taught? Therefore, the narrator must aim to have destroying ignorance only with words. When the worship is done with belief and wisdom, the existence of self, then only is the Atman propitiated and reveals the knowledge of the Supreme Spirit, becoming extant to the worshipper. In the place of the Atman, if one meditates on the Paramatman, then there will be no distinction made between the two and worship that in this manner the Atman appropriated with the worshipper. There is no other better means to appropriate the Atman, seeing the seeker inclined towards the Atman grants grace. When the object of the book is accomplished, the narrator implores the listeners to beg forgiveness for putting them through the ordeal of listening. This is a customary way, but this is not the case in respect of the Satcharita because I do not have the capability of writing it. Sai himself has written his story by giving the pen in my hand. Therefore, I am not the author of the book and do not put it through any ordeal by me. If I ask for forgiveness of the listeners, I will be unnecessarily taking responsibility of this deed. I have no claims to its virtues nor its imperfections. When Sai himself is the doer, that brings the matter to an end. After taking Sai's permission, I have written exactly as he has narrated, and I have considered ignorance distinctly for the listeners. By pervading my very being, Gurudev has thrown light on the subject to make the known his own splendor, his power, and his grandeur. Anyone who finds virtues in this book or imperfections is deserving of my total veneration as being an embodiment of God Himself. Sri Sai has written his story for the supreme benefit of his devotees, having created his own biography, holding Hemad's hand, Sri Sai took the bodily form only to favor the people, to destroy evil thoughts and obstinacies, and to protect people's togetherness. Therefore, Hemad prostrates to Sri Sai wholeheartedly with faith. The assembly of listeners must completely be attentive on to hear interesting stories to follow. May there be well-being. This is the end of the 50th chapter of the Sri Sai Samartha Satcharitra, written by the devotee Hemad Pant, impelled by saints and virtuous people, called Removal of Ignorance. This is offered to Sri Satguru Sainath. May there be auspiciousness. Om Sai Ram. Now let us do the Aarti. श्री सच्चिदानंद सतगुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय। शिरडी बाजे पंढरपूर साई बाबा रमावर, बाबा रमावर, साई बाबा रमावर, शुद्ध भक्ती चंद्रभागा भाव पुंडलिक जागा, पुंडलिक जागा भाव पुंडलिक जागा, याव याव अवके जन करा बाबा श्रीवंदन, साई श्रीवंदन करा बाबा श्रीवंदन, तनु बने बाबा साई पाव पाव माझे आई, पाव माझे आई, पाव पाव माझे आई, अनिल तांगन बने कचरण तुयासी पायन रूपा तुझे, फेवीन रंगीन अनंत पूजिम पवेव इन बने नमा, तवेव माता पिता त्वमेव, त्वमेव बंधु सदा त्वमेव, त्वमेव विद्या दैरंगमेव, त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव, पायनु माझ्या पसरणीर्म उदक नावा पतन स्वभाव, करोमि अद्य सकलतरस्मै नारायणाय समर्पयामि, अच्युतं केशवं राम नाम नारायणं कृष्णदामोदरं वासुदेवं हरे, इदमं माधवं गोपिकावल्लभं जानकी नायकं रामचन्द्रं हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, श्री गुरुदेव दत्त सच्चिदानंद सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय। Om Sai Ram. I urge all the listeners to read one chapter of the Sai Satcharitra daily and soak in Baba bliss. Baba bless you. Om Sai Ram.